Hey everyone, this is Andrew Ty. Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be looking at this Inspiron One 2310. So this is the all-in-one computer, and I've got it flat down on the screen. And what we're going to be doing is doing a dismantle, and then I'll show you how to change the hard drive out. But the main objective is going to be making sure that this computer doesn't overheat. So when you turn this on, it will just shut down very quickly. It's because the computer's overheating. We're going to repaste the CPU and then also just clear the fans out, just see what's going on. So I'm just going to show you that process. So the first thing we're going to need to do is take off the back cover. So we only have these two black screws at the bottom, which I'm just going to use my Phillips head to take out. So it's pretty straightforward, to be honest. And this is one of the better all-in-ones that I've dealt with, because all you have to do is remove these two screws, and then we're able to simply slide the back off like that. So this back panel just comes off quite easily like that, and then we're in. So the layout of this is pretty straightforward. We have the fan here, and then there's the heatsink here with the kind of the main motherboard there. Then we also have the hard drive here. The hard drive is really easy to get out. We just pull out the, I'll just unscrew this drive cage. So these screws are very easy to get off. They don't actually come all the way out. We just unscrew them. We can just slide the hard drive out. And then we have access to the standard SATA power cable and the data cable there. So if we wanted to change this to a solid state drive, that's very straightforward to do. So just going to flip this back, put this back in. So with this cage, we're going to take off this cover here. So I'm just going to use my Phillips head to do this. And then I'm just going to remove more of these screws here. So this is basically the RAM cover here. So we have access to the heatsink here, but I'm going to remove the rest of the screws. So there's a couple more screws at the top here, which we're going to take off as well. And we also actually have to remove this bottom panel here, so I'm just going to go ahead and do that. It's got the one screw here. Another screw here. And another screw in this bottom left corner. So we can just lift this bottom panel away. Then we get access to the last screw of this cover here. Oh, there's one more screw here. So once we remove this screw and the top two here, then we can just lift this out. And now we've got access to the heat sinks and the fans. It's basically very likely that these aren't in very good shape. So what I'm going to do is lift up the heatsink and the fans and then see if we need to repaste this. It's very likely that we do. So that's the kind of first fan, and then I can see that this heatsink is really kind of gunked up, and I want to be able to take off the rest of these screws from this heatsink here. So now I'm going to remove this screw here. And then also the 2 screws for this fan here. So now I should be able to lift up this entire array. Let's remove this fan from the motherboard. So this is the GPU fan, and you can kind of see that this has got a thermal pad here. It's kind of a bit sticky. I wonder if this is raising the contact, because this thermal paste does not look good. So this could be the cause of the overheating, and of course the dust on this is pretty caked up. So I will resolve that. And finally this array here. So I need to take this screw out too. That's just the tape that's attaching this screw to that. Now we've got this final screw here. So, okay, that's some of the worst dust I've seen. So it is no wonder that this is overheating. And of course the thermal paste is completely caked up. So we're gonna go have a go at fixing this. So the kind of key to this is going to be compressed air. So normally you have a straw which fits into this kind of aerosol can of air, and what we're going to do is use this to blow out all of the kind of dust from the heat sinks. It is like really loud and dusty, so I'm going to do this outside. All you need is kind of compressed air. Don't use a vacuum cleaner because that will introduce static and it will damage your computer, but I'm just going to basically clear out all of the heat sinks and get that all ready. The next thing I'm going to do is to clear off this thermal paste, which is kind of caked up and greased up. So what you can use is this isopropyl alcohol. That's 99.9% pure alcohol. That won't damage the electronics. And I'll use that to loosen up the thermal paste on here, so we can put some new stuff on. So this stuff is pretty. Will help loosen up the thermal paste. I'm trying to make sure to get it off onto your kitchen towel or tissue. I'm using anti-static cleaner here. You don't want it on any other electronics, but basically just use this to loosen it up. Don't pull any of the transistors off, especially this is the CPU, so just be careful of that. It's not that important to go all the way around. I mean, the most important thing is that there's a solid contact between the heatsink, so the top of this kind of center part here, and then the heatsink itself. And of course, we're going to have to clean the heatsink out too, same kind of deal. Just be very delicate, because these are very delicate pieces of equipment. I'll use this to work on this heatsink too. Oh, that just slid right off. That was pretty good. So basically, I've cleared out the fans and the dust from this heatsink, and basically this is just going to work much better. You can see how it was really caked up before, but now it's looking much cleaner. So we're just going to basically repaste this. So that means that when we place the heatsink back into the correct location, then we're going to use the Arctic. We're going to use some Arctic MX4 to put onto the actual CPU itself, and then that will maintain a contact with the heatsink and then make sure that heat is transferred efficiently along the pipe, then it gets blown out through the fan. So the main thing is that when you're using this type of thermal paste, right, is that you just use a kind of a medium-sized blob. So I'm just going to do that much on that particular processor there, and that much there. So, not too much. When it makes contact with the heatsink, it's going to be, when it makes contact with the heatsink, it will just flatten down. So that's sufficient. So this side goes first because the other heatsink goes on top. And then basically I'm just going to screw this in. So it's important when you do these kind of heat sinks that you don't go too hard on the heatsink. You don't go too hard on the screws all the way until you do all of them. Okay, so they're all threaded in a little bit, and I'll just tighten them at the end. And if you imagine, that's just flattening down the thermal paste compound that we've put on there. So we've got like a good contact between the CPU and the heatsink itself. So that's screwed in now. And then all we need to do here is to place the fan on top. So this fan had this tape, probably for airflow. And I'm going to put the CPU fan here into this 4-pin fan slot, and then we're just going to screw that in. tighten the screw here. So that's pretty securely in, that's nice and tight. And then we need to do the next heatsink. So this is for the AMD GPU, and that's going to slot in like so on top of this heatsink here. You can see that there's this contact point being made between here and there, and there's this fan slot here as well, which is going to blow air out. I have this thermal pad here. These are for these chips on the side. I'm just going to keep them like as they are, because I don't want to affect the I want to keep this as it is. It's a little bit old, but I don't want to affect the height of the heatsink as it makes contact there. So I'm going to use my thermal paste again, just a little blob on top of the GPU. It's probably the most important part if you're doing any gaming on this, which I hope you're not, because this is really not a great computer for gaming on. But yeah, that just makes solid contact at the top, and I'm just going to screw this in one corner at a time. They've numbered these for some reason, but you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, it's telling us to do the diagonals first. So yeah, once they're all kind of in and made contact, then we can tighten them properly. That's number 1. Number 2, number 3, and number 4. So that's nice and tight now. And then we're going to put in our fan. So it's got this foil on top. Put this here. This goes into the fan slot like so. It's the 4-pin fan header there. Now we've got some screws to plug in here. So that's basically in again. We just need to basically put all of these screws back in. Okay, so now all of the screws back in for the fans. We're going to put the back plate back on. And so this plate has this antenna, which I managed to take off. So that is the TV tuner. So I'm just going to put that back. It goes into this AV media slot. So that plugs in right there, and then we're going to slide this back in. So I just need to screw these back in. Okay, so that plate is back on, and we're going to put the kind of RAM shield back on. So this the shield just kind of slides in like this. So that RAM shield just goes in like that. Right, it's okay, you can, I'll cut this bit out. You just go and get dressed. Okay, so now it's done, we're going to put the back plate back on. So this covers the So we're going to put the kind of, so now we're going to kind of put the back plate and the kind of legs back onto this. So this just slots in like so. Clips in like that. I'm just going to put the screws back in here. So now it's done, we're just going to slot the back plate on. So that just involves pushing down here. And that should clip back in. And then we just have to slot in the first two. Then we just have to slot in the first two screws that we put in. Okay, good. So we've got the computer up and running now, and I can hear that the fans are on full blast like they were before. I didn't shoot footage of what this was like beforehand, but basically it would turn on for a minute and then it'll just shut down. And this has been on for several hours now and it's working fine. So that is how you clear out this particular all-in-one's fans and do a repaste of the CPU. If you enjoyed my video, please give it a like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.